Is it even fall time without a Stephen King read? I don't think so. I think this is the first time that I will be reading a Stephen King book on my channel. I have done a video in the past where I ranked all of the Holly Gibney books, so if you haven't seen that, definitely check it out. Keep in mind there are spoilers, so if you're not familiar with Holly and her story, there will be spoilers of like all of the books that she was in, but there won't be any spoilers about what happens in Never Flinch. So yeah, spoiler free for this, but yeah, I wanted to make sure I give that warning because like her story is a very, very interesting one that I love. So from my understanding, this book has two kind of like stories going on. There's the one where a supposedly innocent person was murdered and this kind of like killer person was like, hey, that wasn't right. So think kind of like law-abiding citizen. And what he does is he sends this letter to, I guess, like the police department. He's like, hey, you killed an innocent person. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to kill like 13 innocent people and one guilty one. Okay, that's not a good time. And so the detective on the case ends up involving Holly to help kind of solve what is going on, making sure no more of these murders happen. And then simultaneously, there is a story about a women's rights activist, and she's pretty much on tour, and she has a stalker who really disagrees with her messages. And it seems very timely for, you know, just how everything is kind of happening right now. So the story seems timely, it seems interesting. I wonder if there's going to be any kind of supernatural elements, because like in The Outsider, that was definitely the introduction of that kind of stuff, or if it's going to be more like the Bill Hodges trilogy, where it was less, like not even less, it just was not supernatural at all, and it was more just like crime mystery based. But I know like whatever it is, I'm sure I'm going to like it because I really do enjoy the way that Stephen King kind of like creates his characters and tells his stories and just how it all kind of goes together. I don't really find his books scary, but I do find them really well done. And so I've loved Holly's story like since the beginning, and just how much she's grown and just like matured as a character and the confidence that she's gained. So I'm really excited to read this book. So without further ado, let's crack it open. And if you're also a fan of Holly, go ahead and subscribe because same. Oh, but wait, we know the drill. This has a dust cover and that needs to come off before I can read the book. So I can already kind of see that the book is like red underneath. So I imagine it's red with like a black spine. And I am hoping that there's a pretty design underneath. Like Stephen King knows his books are going to sell. So like why not splurge a little and make a very pretty underneath dust cover. So let's find out if I am right, and if not, I will be very disappointed in you, Mr. King. Ooh, am I disappointed, or is it one of those like embossed ones? I'm disappointed. Doesn't even have a black spine. He could have done so much. He could have put a pretty design underneath. That's all I ask. Why have a hardcover without a pretty design? Anyways, let's read this book now. So I'm a little bit more than 100 pages into Stephen King's Never Flinch, and here are my thoughts so far. There's something very special about the way that Stephen King writes that really just is like, it just grips you, and you can feel all of the different tones, like the voices and the characters used throughout the books, and it's just really well done. I also really love the way that he uses brackets. I feel like not many books, not many authors tend to use brackets as consistently that he does, but like he does it in such a great way. It kind of adds a bit more of a like, oh, you know, kind of tone. And I feel like brackets, I feel like they're not loved enough, you know? Like my love of the M dash it's really been tested these days because of ChatGPT and how people are now thinking the M dash is because of ChatGPT. I've actually been using brackets more often recently as well, just to kind of like find some way that people are like, oh, you're not AI, that kind of stuff. But that's just random, kind of not related. But what I like about his writing is that you really get into the minds of the characters, and there's no character that you're like, oh, like I don't care. It's just the way he writes just really grips you, and you're like, oh, I want to know what happens next. And I love Holly. I love her so much. I'm so proud of like the way that she has grown as a character, and she's just so fun. Like, I love that she doesn't swear either. She's just like so authentic. She's so her, and I love that so much. And then being able to see like Barbara again and Jerome, these characters, it's so nice to see like these, honestly, like these fan favorites. And then Izzy as well, which I don't know about you, but I honestly totally ship Izzy and Holly. Like, I don't know, I kind of get like that, ooh, they could be so cute together vibe. And yeah, it's fun because we're following along a bunch of different kind of characters in like a third person kind of POV. And so obviously we're following Holly, and she's not actually like directly involved with the case, but she is supporting Izzy in a way, because Holly's still doing like the finders keepers stuff. Right now she's looking for like missing jewels, bail jumpers, like all of that stuff. But she and Izzy, since the events in Holly with the, if you remember those deranged old people, and they like locked Holly in that like box, like they were eating people, like all that gross stuff, she and Izzy have basically become friends since then, and they go out for like coffees and stuff, and it's really cute. Yeah, and so she's kind of like in a way working with Izzy. Like if Izzy has a problem, like Holly's able to kind of like think on it, and they can kind of help each other out in that way, but she's not like super involved, at least yet. So then we're following Izzy as she's investigating like, why is this guy killing a bunch of like innocent people? Like, what's the reasoning behind that? How can we catch him? Who is he? How can we stop him? Like all of this stuff. And then something I completely forgot about the Stephen King books is that you get to actually follow the murderer. And this is Trig. That's the name he's going by. And so we really get to understand his thought process. And then like you follow along to him being like, okay, I need to do this. Like him convincing himself what he's doing is the right thing to do despite knowing that it's not. And him following through, like, you know, it's like he's killing people and he's like, how does this make me feel? Like, am I reflecting on it? And he's like, okay. Like, it's just really interesting to really get to know the killer in these books. I feel like it just like, it doesn't like, I mean, you know, sometimes you like that kind of, whoa, that's who the killer was. You don't get that, at least from the Stephen King books that I've read, but I really like that you learn so much more about the character. Like with Brady Hatsfield, that guy, like getting in his head, it's like, wow. And when I was a teenager, I was really obsessed with the TV show Criminal Minds. And that was one of the things that I really liked about the show, because you learn more about the criminal and what they're doing and why they're doing stuff, and how they also kind of get perceived as normal and like regular working Joe, that kind of stuff. And so it's really interesting to follow Trig, and like you understand him, but you're like, ooh, like you shouldn't do that, guys. Come on, like that's not good. And then the other story that we're following is pretty much this activist named Kate and her assistant Corinne. And so Kate has published a couple of books, and she's kind of doing a book tour, but it's not really about the books. It's more about like going to different states and kind of speaking her beliefs with a crowd of people. And so she's promoting like feminism and how it's important that women have rights, and that decisions made by men who've never been in a woman's shoes, like why is that kind of happening, kind of stuff. And so she has been targeted by somebody who basically doesn't agree with her and is trying to kill her and stalk her. So Corinne is her like assistant person, so we get kind of more from her perspective of like not really Kate's, but more of hers. And so that's also interesting. I'm curious to see how the stories are going to kind of like match up, because there's obviously like there's stuff happening and characters involved, and it's like, how is it going to all tie in together? And I'm really excited to see how that goes and where the rest of the book goes, because we still don't know like why. I mean, we kind of know why Trig is doing this, but we don't really understand like what was his relation to the person and like how this all kind of came to be, you know? So I'm going to continue to read this book, definitely having a really great time. And so I will update you around the halfway mark. So I will see you then. So I'm definitely more than halfway through Never Flinch, and I'm still eating this book up. I really like how like the plot is twisting here, especially about like who the stalker is and how all of that is kind of related. That was a surprise when it came to knowing a bit more about that person, and then following Trig and the addiction of all of this. It's like, wow, like these characters are like, I mean, there's a reason that this man has so many awards. I'm really interested in seeing like where the rest of the story goes, and I love just following Holly. I love Holly so much. I think she's a brilliant character. I think there are some parts of Stephen King's writing that I'm not like the biggest fan of. Like, I don't really like the way that he kind of describes women in such a sexual manner, but he doesn't do the same thing for men. But for the story itself, I think the story itself is well done, and the characters in the story I really like to follow, especially because there's so many different kind of like characters that we are following, but it's not overwhelming, and they all have their own kind of story going on that is going to connect in the way that he manages to connect all these stories. And so, yeah, we're following Holly, of course, and she has somehow gotten involved with being like a bodyguard and stuff, and so that's a kind of fun plot line that we're following. But what the kind of like the main one, I guess, would definitely be about Trig, because he's really on this like serial killer spree at this point. Like, he's gonna target some high profile people, like all of that, and I'm like, oh, that's gonna connect, because there's also Barbara and Jerome's story that are kind of related to this soul center who's happening, and then like Jerome is also helping Holly like solve the mystery. And I love that there's just like so much, and like the characters are doing their own independent investigations to all help each other out. And not to mention that Izzy now has to play on this like softball team for like the cops and firefighters like charity fundraiser, and she doesn't want to do it, but like she has to, but there's like a serial killer on the loose. It just feels very real, like real life events get in the way of these investigations and what the characters are trying to do and what they're trying to achieve. And I like that. I just really think that it's so well done, and it's so easy to follow along and like want to keep on turning the pages to see like where is this book going to go and how is it going to end, like which characters are going to make it. I think there are definitely parts of this book that some readers may not enjoy, because it does deal with a lot of kind of extremist Christian people, and so you kind of have a lot of that happening in both of the main stories. And whatever your opinions are and like your views and beliefs, this book is very clear in a certain belief that I believe Mr. King kind of follows as well, and it's very evident in this book. And so, I mean, I think that it's still a good book to read, even if you don't believe in the kinds of things that are in this book, because it's important to kind of, you know, expand your horizons, come in with an open mind, like all of that stuff. But I mean, personally for me, I'm like, yeah, like women deserve rights. So yeah, definitely enjoying the book. I like, what I really think is interesting too is that Stephen King can do like really scary paranormal monsters, and they can be like to the same level as his just like, you know, human bad guys, and they're both the same levels of evil and bad and scary. Like humans can be as scary as monsters is kind of the gist. And I like that, because it's like you never really know with his books, like is it going to be like just like a monstrous human, or is it going to be a monstrous monster? You don't really know. So yeah, I also really like just like, you know, they're kind of mentioning stuff that happened in the previous books that I'm like, oh, I remember that time. What a time. So yeah, I'm going to continue to read this book, and I will update you when I finish it. So I will see you then with my final thoughts. So I just finished reading Never Flinch, and the way that this book ended, that was a good plot twist. That like, this is how you end a book like this. Like, oh, he's so good at what he does. This, I would say that the last 100 pages of this book, the way that climax was written is on par with Brandon Sanderson. Yeah, I just said that. And it's because I was literally like biting my nails, like I'm like, oh my goodness, what's gonna happen? Like you have this time that you know something is gonna happen at like 7:17, and so you're turning the pages, it's jumping from a different character, it's like a paragraph then it jumps to a different character, a paragraph, and you have like the timestamps, and you're like, ah! Oh, that was so good. That was my favorite part of the entire book. You can, yeah, it's my favorite thing that like Brandon Sanderson does too. It's like when you get to that part of the book, you just can't stop reading it. Like, I could not put this down. I needed to know what would happen. Like, which characters are safe, which characters are gonna die, like what is going to happen. And he did it. Of course he did. There is a reason why he is like, you know, so famous. He's not famous for no reason. I think I do though have a bit of an issue in the way that he describes, I think I talked about this already when I was reading the book earlier, that I don't really like the way he describes women, and I don't like that if a character is like overweight, he continuously mentions it. Like, I feel like you just gotta mention it once and like that's fine. But those are kind of like my qualms of the book, where I was like, okay, you don't need to keep on going on and on and on about this. Like, it's a bit unnecessary, and yeah. But other than that, like, there was a lot of really interesting stuff in this book, especially the actual sources at the end that he cited about people, doctors specifically, who were victims of people who don't agree with what they were doing for these like clinics. And it's tragic. Like, when you look, it's like it goes way back to like the 1980s. There was one in 2015. I'll read the line to you because I thought it was really good. It was in the afterword part. He says, however you feel about abortion, one fact is indisputable. These people were murdered for their beliefs. And this whole book touches on that part, like with the whole church aspect, like the really extreme church, not like the nice, you know what I mean, right? Like, please don't cancel me. But like, this book has that type of topic. Like, you have the woman Kate who's advocating for a woman's right to be in control of her own body, and you have people who are super against it. And I think that he did a very good job in not showing what he actually thinks, what his opinion is on the matter. He instead gave you these characters. All these characters are flawed, and you get to see each of their perspectives, people who are pro-life and people who are like pro-choice. And this whole book does a really good job in showing that. And the fact that this book was written and talks about how people are killed for their beliefs is really eerie, because that keeps happening. Like, I'm recording this end of September, so if you've been following the news, September 2025, like, there's a lot of stuff like that happens, whether you agree or disagree with it. Like, people are not allowed to speak about certain things, and this whole book talks about that, and I'm like, wow, it's kind of creepily timely, because this book came out in May, so maybe he's a time traveler, I don't know, but like, it's a big issue, and his books talk about these issues. And maybe some people won't like that. Maybe they'll think like, oh yeah, why is he getting so political, like that kind of stuff. But this is a modern day book. He talks about COVID as well. Like, in the previous Holly book, COVID was a thing. Like, Holly's always been the type of character who's like very hyper aware of like being clean and not infecting people, like that kind of stuff. And I know that there was some disagreement about his choice in kind of making COVID in a book. But I personally really like that choice, because you don't see that often in these books. These Holly, like the Holly books, are in our current timeline. So it makes sense that kind of current political issues and other kinds of events that are going on all kind of take place in the setting. It just makes sense. And of course he found a perfect way to weave these stories together, because it's like, what are you going to do about like these surrogate murders, and how are you going to tie that into Kate and her stalker? Like, what is that going to look like? And he did a wonderful job linking those together. It was very seamless. It made a lot of sense. I liked all of the other kind of like stories happening, like with Sister Bessie and like her crew, and like Barbara's part in that, and then like Jerome's part in those stories. Of course, Holly's part. Holly's my favorite. And then there was that whole side story with Izzy where she's doing like the baseball tournament, and like, it's kind of funny actually. It's kind of like lighthearted. But even in that kind of like lighthearted charity idea, there was also a lot of like sexism in it, and that was another like reoccurring theme throughout the book that he talks about, and he kind of shows with his characters and how they deal with certain situations and stuff. And I thought it was really cool to be able to see these characters that I've known for so long, as well as some of these new characters put in different situations. And the horse, that's all I'm gonna say. I'm just gonna say the horse. If you know, you know. He also did a really great job in just showing you the mental collapse of our main kind of like bad guy. And you see him slowly lose his grip on like reality the more and more he gets worse and worse. And then also like the characters trying to figure out who he is, and the reveal of who he is, I didn't guess that at all. I did not see that coming, but like it makes so much sense. It was great. I really liked this one. I think that he's done a wonderful job in this book, and I really like that he tackled some really hard themes in this book, especially like, you know, like he's a man. And it's like he's a man and he seems to have really understood the issues that some of these women in this like story are facing, that women in the past and women in the present and probably even women in the future face. So I thought he did a wonderful job. I can see this becoming like a banned book because of the way that he's kind of touched on these sensitive themes, but I honestly think he did a good job. My only critique was just the way he was describing women, especially like the overweight character. That was just it just rubbed me the wrong way, but I think everything else was done very well. So today we are going to be awarding Never Flinch a total of 4 stars. Something that I think I've really enjoyed with the Holly Gibney series is that it's not really supernatural outside of like The Outsider. But I really like that because he shows that humans can be monsters too. But also he's balancing the line now with her stories, because like she and Barbara know about Chet, or like the Outsider, or whatever you want to call him. And there's so much that he can do with that, but he's keeping it just like kind of mysterious and like creepy, and you know that whatever that is exists, but you're also focused on like the human evil that exists in the world. And I really think that he does a great job in like the thought process of his kind of like murderer characters, like for Trig. I really think he did a wonderful job on Trig. I was like, oh my goodness, like his thought process makes so much sense, but like, you know, it doesn't. And then like you follow him and you follow as he does his first murder, and then as he keeps on going and going, and like why he's doing it too. Like, I don't know how he thinks of this stuff. And that's something that I think I really like about his stories, is that he goes in a direction with it. And the creatures that he does create in his like more supernatural kind of horror stuff, like those are really creepy. And all of his characters, like the way that all of the bad guys exist and kind of like plan, and like the hints and the foreshadowing and like the different trails you can follow, always surprise me. And it's nice to be surprised, because I feel like because I read so much, sometimes it's really hard for me to be surprised. So when I am surprised, I'm like, yes, thank you. It's also really cool to like, this man's written like 60 books, like, and I'm sure he has more. I'm pretty sure there's like a rumor about how he actually has a bunch of books like in a safe, and they'll probably be published like once he passes away. Like, well, he's still gonna be publishing books even when he's gone. Like, what? That's iconic behavior. And now I don't really know much about Stephen King. Like, I don't know what his personal life is. I don't know if he's been canceled. I don't know any of that. I just know that I like his book. I like the way that this one was written, and I like that he continues Holly's story, and I'm excited to see like where the rest of her story goes, because she's a private investigator. Like, there's always a story that we can have with her in it, and I love that. So yeah, that's kind of what I think about this book, Never Flinch. I don't really like the cover, but like I get it, because like Lady Justice, and then it's like murder and all of that stuff. But yeah, overall, pretty good book. Just make sure you read the other books that Holly's in to really understand her story. Start with Bill Hodgins if you haven't already, and then there's like the other ones in between that I think it's like If It Bleeds. There's another one, and then there's The Outsider. There's like a novella, I think that's also in If It Bleeds. But yeah, check it out. I have a ranking video where I talk about all of those as well. There are spoilers in that, but like if you've read these, then maybe check out the ranking video, because I talk about all of those. And I think I would rank this one, like, it's not as good as The Outsider, but it is still a really good one. And maybe I think I'd put it 1 or 2 below The Outsider, because I think like Holly's really good. Holly, this one is like below Holly. That's where I would put it in my list. Okay, so I'm editing right now, and I realized I didn't do the, hey, this is the book that I'm reading next, and all that good outro stuff, because I ended up getting sick like 5 minutes after I recorded that, but this is the book I'm reading next. This is actually where I am in the book, but yeah, it's the next book in the From Blood and Ash series by Jennifer L. Armentrout, so this is what I'm reading next. So obviously you can see I'm pretty close to finishing the book, so that video is going to be out soon, so go ahead and subscribe if you want to go see that video, and any other book that happens to be my Never End TBR, obviously I'm going to be talking about. So yeah, with that, I'm going to wish you warm wishes and fish kisses, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!